But El Nino may rear its head. And so this is where you get the balance of the battle, because you have an El Nino situation, but you also have extremely warm sea temperatures. And what you started with, I think, is the real important part, is that the Gulf right now is extremely warm. This is an area that we look to this time of year to see very quick development. But quick development that could rapidly intensify is the real problem, because we have a Gulf right now that on average is the warmest we've ever had in recorded history. Temperatures are averaging around 87, 88 degrees in the Gulf buoys. And so if anything gets even a little bit organized here, it can rapidly turn into something that impacts landfall. And so that's the reason I think we look especially closely at what happens in the Gulf in the next 10 days.
And in the case with Harold, the reason that, you know, what happened with Harold is they ran out of time. If you get a storm that even has remotely more than 24 to 48 hours in the Gulf of Mexico, now you've got a bigger problem on our hands. We'll have to watch the models, you know, to see what
Get NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube TV on us. Plus, get a free Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 5, only on Verizon.
A break, but still the Milwaukee Metro in the heat for tomorrow. And of course, we have quite a few guests in the area for the day today. We are hosting the Republican debate this evening at Fiserv Forum right in downtown Milwaukee. This is probably not the stereotypical Wisconsin weather they thought they were going to get in mid to late August. Hopefully they came prepared for it as well. The heat was supposed to be during the debate, not in the weather outside the building.
I was just going to say, they gave a brand new meaning to it. Milwaukee's blue skies there right now look very welcoming. Don't be deceived. You get some sunshine, but basically the way the temperatures break down, it gives a brand new meaning to heated debate in Milwaukee tonight.
Yeah,
Rob,
no doubt.
What a summer it has been. Thanks as always for joining us here on Fox Weather Command. Great to see you. Have a terrific week. Fox 6 Chief Meteorologist Rob Haswell.
Thank you so much. Stay cool, guys.
You got it. All these soaring temperatures, of course, just part of the problem, because when you get into the Midwest, places like Milwaukee and then all the way down through the Tennessee and Ohio River valleys, you start to get humidity. My grandma Freeze always used to say, it's not the heat, it's the humidity. It's because the moisture makes it almost impossible for your human body to cool off. It just feels so hot. It's just not the thermometer reading alone that makes it miserable for people. The temperatures, you know, they don't cool off at night either, which is a problem, but the dew point combination here is what makes it feel so bad. Inland areas that aren't close to oceans, where do they get the water source that comes in? No sea breeze, right, to increase the moisture. There are other ways, though, that the humidity can increase. Believe it or not, we can blame a little of this on vegetables. I love blaming things on vegetables. You also look at moisture content in the soil. So there are other factors on where the humidity comes from, especially in the Midwest.
Yes, and the corn, it's good for eating, but it's not always the good for when a ridge of high pressure really dominates the landscape. That's been the case. I mean, Rob Haswell up there, it's unique to see it, but in 2022 and 2021, it's always this talk of the corn.
Corn sweat.
August, yeah, it's corn sweat, and some say it's just the corn breathing. We've got this evapotranspiration which occurs, a little bit of evaporation, and then of course the corn, it does transpire, and so as it does that, it releases more moisture in the air. 1 acre of corn, as it reaches its peak growth, can release 3,000 to 4,000 gallons of water vapor, and that's an amazing amount. It doesn't really affect our reporting stations, you know, like say in Chicago, but outside of there in the Corn Belt, in rural Iowa, Illinois, those dew points. Most of
Wow,
August
those
has
are
been below
numbers.
average, and yeah, we've already seen 6. And for perspective's sake, we typically just have about 2 days where that heat index in Paducah gets above 110, but we're already at 6. The most we saw it back, I think, in 1980 of 14.
That is just, it is miserable
there.
heat. Let's look, Kiana, break down the board here where we can see hot temperatures match up with higher humidity, because there are some extremes. This week we went into it with Lawrence, Kansas, their international airport, reading 134 for the feels like. That was a new record for them, by the way. But these numbers are off the charts.
They really are. And I think that's the most remarkable part. We're so late in the season to see our dew points pretty much matching our high temperatures, making it for very uncomfortable conditions. We were looking at Milwaukee, we use that as an example, but we also see this across parts of the Midwest, an area that actually has not seen much of summer so far. Looking at where things are pretty much matching up, or at least very close in terms of the dew points and the actual air temperature, you'll use areas like Nashville, for example, very close to that air temperature of 84. Looking up towards, say, St. Louis, very close to their high of 88. That is going to make it feel a lot hotter than that actual air temperature at the surface. So it's time for you to really prepare yourself through today. Drink plenty of water, take things easy. I know, some folks laugh when we say wear those lighter shadings of color when we talk about your T-shirts, but it's helpful when we're looking at high temperatures and dew points like this.
Yeah, just uncomfortable to be outside for any time period at all, because your body can't cool itself. So it's a problem, and this could be the last week of it, as some cooler air is waiting in the wings. So we'll leave you hanging there. But if you don't like the weather, they say just wait 5 minutes. You could also go across the state. A tale of extremes for the state of Minnesota. They had a 39-degree temperature difference from Minneapolis-St. Paul to the lakefront town of Toft. Now, the feels like temperature difference was double. So when we talk about feels like, that is the heat index, the combination of those numbers, and it was a 57-degree difference over just 200 miles. You take a 3.5-hour drive from the heat of summer, you get into the comforts of fall. So if you want to take a road trip, this is a way to fill 2 seasons in just one trip. So that's pretty impressive to see those
fall?
numbers.
I think that's fall. I see Lake Superior up there. You get a little bit of that wind just off Lake Superior, and the temperatures can drop. The fact that it felt cooler than the actual air temperature, we won't call it a wind chill, but makes you kind of think of it. As far as the temperatures go too, in Minneapolis, having that hot of a reading, you said the heat index was 114 yesterday.
So extreme.
One of the hottest. Farther south, St. Louis hit 117, and that's the 3rd highest heat index that we have seen in St. Louis. So all cities in the Midwest, I'd say, feeling it, unless you're in Tofty.
Oh yeah, Tofty, you get the lake influence there. So you're getting Lake Superior breeze coming at you, which of course tames that temperature right down.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for being with us on a Wednesday. Kiana Lewis, Stephen Morgan, Amy Freeze here with you on Weather Command. We'll have much more coming up.
Let's do it again.
If you receive Medi-Cal, act now to keep your coverage. Blue Shield Promise is here to help with the redetermination process or reapply for Medi-Cal if you've lost coverage. Call Blue Shield Promise at 855-636-5251.
Cholula's authentic blend of premium Mexican flavors makes your thing the best thing. Welcome to La Familia, mother of sauce.
Welcome back to Weather Command. Right on cue, the tropics are in overdrive as we enter the heart of the Atlantic hurricane season. 3 areas of interest, including resurrected remnants of Emily, possibly strengthening back into a tropical depression in the open waters. We watch Emily the next couple of days, but right now, Tropical Storm Franklin is drenching the Dominican Republic. DR's capital, Santo Domingo, getting absolutely crushed right now with driving rains and winds. National Hurricane Center forecasting up to a foot of rain from the storm Franklin. Locally, could see higher pockets getting up to 16 inches. Unreal. This is a load of moisture and more than any of the other storms that have already made landfall this week. Mainly, this rain will fall across the western and central parts of the island nations. And then you look at this center of the tropical storm Franklin creeping over Dominican Republic. You'll start to see some of these waves come up right now, the calm before the storm from these two vantage points. Fox Weather with eyewitness accounts, a camera network, and as soon as things pick up, we'll be able to get a vantage point. These cameras sometimes are automated, so you'll get different perspectives as these storms move through. Now, western portions of the Dominican Republic and also parts of Puerto Rico on the outskirts of the storm will get some rain. It really is the DR, though, that gets the brunt of this. Tropical storm conditions could extend the Turks and Caicos later tonight, maybe 3 inches there. But you look at this potential for some big flooding in areas that are vulnerable to mudslides, and really much of Hispaniola can't take a lot of rain on those slopes, and so that's where things start to become dangerous. We look at all the alerts that are up, and keep in mind Franklin was a slow mover, not very well organized, has a load of moisture with it, but it creeped toward the island, thankfully picking up a little speed. That will help it make its way over the island. And right now, the latest wind speeds coming out are 40-mile-an-hour winds as the storm is just south of Grand Turk Island by about 180 miles. So you've got a stretch to go before it jumps over the islands, gets back into the open waters. The cone will roll over the islands, and by tomorrow, maybe intensifies back into a Category 2 storm, and it gives Bermuda a scare. So let's get into this, Stephen. South sides of the island get slammed. I mean, heavy rain coming in like this on these islands, it's such a fragile situation because of the topography. It is, and the topography is going to perhaps later, even as Franklin lifts off to the north into the Atlantic, we could see the resulting mudslides and debris flows, which unfortunately we know that Hispaniola is prone to, Haiti and the Dominican Republic. I mean, depending on where these make landfall, it can really disrupt a storm center, which is a good thing, but as it's going to be emerging over in the open waters, and we do have a weakening ridge to the north, a ridge of high pressure, and so that is going to allow it to strengthen perhaps even some. Watching this rain, I mean, closing in on 1.5 feet worth of rain, I think we might be surprised by some of these totals as we head into the day on Thursday, but crossing over the mountains, and there's Santo Domingo, as we were showing some of that video, it's on the south shore of the DR. We have that rain that will be going down the mountains. As it lifts into the Atlantic, as Franklin reemerges, it will organize. Confidence has increased that that's going to happen, and the intensity too. Temperatures, yeah, very warm in the mid-80s. What we'll see, that ridge is going to weaken just a bit to the north. It's actually going to re-strengthen. So we're going to see Franklin, the forecast shows, do a bit of a jog. All the while, as it's being steered by these winds, it's going to continue to organize. So we'll have to watch how strong Franklin gets. Yeah. You mentioned the ridge, and if it holds it in place, that allows it over the warmer waters to perhaps get more circulation and more well organized. It strengthens the storm, and all of a sudden you've got a Category 1 in Kiana. Bermuda is right there in the wings, maybe a threat to Bahamas too, because Turks and Caicos do have alerts up.
That's right. You see this bit of a zigzag when it comes to the models, as again, it looks like Franklin will hop into much warmer sea surface temperatures in the week ahead. You'll have to watch Bermuda very closely, though, because I think that is going to be the island that actually sees most of the impacts from the latter half of Franklin heading into next week. So if you have those plans to Bermuda, maybe you're heading off to vacation there. Amy, you made a good point. Bermuda's only a couple of, hours away from New York. It's 90 minutes by plane. So it's very close to the East Coast. Very close to the East Coast, so we'll have to watch very closely, but you'll notice at least the models, as they do that zigzag, have it staring off in that northerly direction, making that jog towards Bermuda. Could also see some higher surf along the southeast as well. Yeah, the southeastern U.S. even, kicking up the waves. So
rule that out. Let's look at the leftovers of Tropical Storm Harold. It was the first Atlantic system to make landfall at the U.S. coastline this season. Harold beat down on South Texas when it made its way inland. The top wind gusts at landfall were 67 miles an hour. Those weakened inland, but as the storm came ashore, Fox Weather's Jason Frazier was there on Padre Island. He saw it at landfall.
Well, Amy, right now the rain is pelting me in the face, and it actually hurts just a little bit here. And because of these intense winds, I mean, I can barely see maybe about a quarter of a mile away, in front of you.
Harold falls apart, but the leftovers of the storm cross over Texas, and we've seen some flash flood alerts from that, and move towards the southwest. It's basically tropical remnants, and they'll brush up against areas that were just recently soaked by Hilary, which of course was a Pacific storm coming from the other direction. But the flow of this tropical moisture from both directions pushes into similar areas, the western U.S., basically desert zones. When you consider this region, it does get monsoon rain, so it's not unheard of to get big quantities of water at times. But this is a very unique setup where you've got tropical moisture from opposite basins ending up in the desert southwest.
Yes, Hilary and Harold, those are the two systems that are bringing for some the first bit of moisture that we have seen for the majority of the season. I mean, even the desert plants, the National Weather Service in El Paso talking about the desert plants are even getting a drink. I mean, there have been some flood alerts that we've had, but the moisture that we have it's enhanced with the monsoon, that flow that we get in the summertime. But to get this in from the southeast, that's Gulf of Mexico moisture. It's streaming in. The flooding threat really confined, at least today, for southern New Mexico, close to the Big Bend of Texas. And then tomorrow that translates as the remnants of Harold. Now not at all anything tropical in nature, but the moisture is tropical into southern Utah by tomorrow.
Yeah, El Paso, and then it reaches into Arizona. I think that's an interesting setup, too, from Phoenix into Flagstaff, because you could get some of that moisture moving into the higher terrain in Flagstaff, and all of a sudden you've got some increased risk there. By tomorrow, there's your southern Utah area, and that is the national park. So Zion, Capitol Reef, Bryce Canyon, all those areas. But Kiana, Flagstaff's an unusual situation where they actually need some of the moisture, but it could lead to flash flooding. It
certainly can because of how dry the ground is there. A lot of the Southwest still remains under drought conditions, whether it be, the first tier of possible or moderate risk or even up to extreme. So any amount of rain that comes through this fast in rate is going to lead to those flash flooding threats. And we've seen Flagstaff remain fairly dry through this summer. We've had a delayed start to the monsoon season. We really haven't gotten any rain. And on top of that, we have seen very hot conditions, at least over the last 3 months, in areas like Arizona. When we look at how things pan out this week, we're much cooler in temperatures. Notice our highs are back into the 70s, but we do get in on those chances for thunderstorms. Just be mindful of those areas that are prone to flooding. Maybe it's a creek nearby your house, or maybe you're at a national park and you're a little bit deeper into a valley. That's going to be an area that you want to stay away from for this flash flood threat. Here's a look at that drought monitor that we mentioned. So much of the Southwest, the Four Corner states, remains abnormal to even up to extremely dry conditions.
Yeah, even New Mexico gets a chance for this rain through the early part of the weekend. Well, cleanup does continue in Southern California from damage caused by Tropical Storm Hilary. Well, the rain certainly left a mark in Cathedral City, where they had devastating mudslides. Nearly 50 residents had to be rescued by a bulldozer Monday after being trapped by mud. It washed out the roads. They could not get to and from their homes. Fox Weather's Nicole Valdez was there with those residents that remained stranded because of the storm.
The scene throughout Cathedral City is at times hard to put into words, but the story is much bigger than all the mud and stranded cars you see around me. It's about the people who have been trapped in their own homes for 2 days now, just unable to get through the incredible amount of dense, thick sludge that surrounds their homes. The mudslide you're now looking at came in like a tidal wave through this neighborhood on Sunday night as Tropical Storm Hilary dumped record-breaking rain in just a matter of minutes. All of that water sending dirt and sand from the surrounding desert inches away from so many front doors. Dozens of homes now impacted, and it is taking days for these bulldozers to make a dent. Some of trying to speed up that process by grabbing a shovel and scooping out what they can from their driveways and cars. Others trying to brave the trek through to check in on their homes, or in some cases, it's leaving business owners like Dolores from being able to get inside to save what's left of her livelihood.
Crawling through the mud. I fell into mud up to my waist. I have never, ever, ever seen anything like this in my life. I mean, we see it on TV, and we don't ever think about the people that suffer, but now we're victims.
Brand new drone video shows the mess goes on for miles, and in some areas that are still inaccessible in this neighborhood, all that mud came crashing into several garages. And once that water receded, those doors split wide open.
You can prepare all you want, for sandbags and whatnot, but what are you going to do? Just clean it up.
And schools in Palm Springs still closed today as leaders recognize that some of their students and their families are still stuck. The hope is they'll finally be able to make it out before the end of the week. In Cathedral City, I'm Nicole Valdez. Fox weather.
From the West Coast to the East Coast, more active weather is in store for the Great Lakes in the Northeast today. Moisture riding the ridge is going to drive the potential for some severe weather. If you're in areas like Detroit or even Cleveland, look how blue the sky is right now. Do not let your guard down. You're going to be two areas that we're going to be watching today for those ridge riding storms that are going to be pushing through as we head through the afternoon. Looking at where they are right now, they're pushing out of the mitten of Michigan, heading across parts of Lake Erie and aiming towards areas like Cleveland. You'll start to see some cloud coverage over you within a matter of minutes, followed by some showers and storms. It's between the jet and the ridge. These ridge riders continue to offer up these showers and storms. They're riding north of that area of high pressure, and a lot of that moisture will continue to tap into these hot temperatures and allow for severe weather in the days ahead. We're watching today in areas like Pittsburgh as well as tomorrow, Detroit. The same goes for you. As we head through even our Thursday, we could see a few showers as far south as Baltimore. Along with that severe weather threat, we're talking damaging winds, but we're also talking about some rotating storms that could be possible. We have a tornado threat. It is a possible threat that stretches across the Great Lakes region, and it is because of how the winds are going to be steered. One of which is the jet stream coming in out of the north to the south. The other is coming in from out of the south across parts of the Great Lakes, and that will add to our instability for those storms that have the potential to have some twisting tornadoes within them as well. We look at the next couple of hours here, even into tomorrow morning, a wet start for western portions of Pennsylvania and diving into the panhandle of Maryland. Watch for that as we head through our Thursday, an active couple of days ahead. And of course, you can definitely download the Fox Weather app or even watch Fox Weather on your favorite connected TV device. We'll be right back after this break.
So many emergency responders saying for people to stay inside.
A historic town is just wiped off the face of the earth.
What you're looking at is unbelievable. Take a look at just how deep the mud goes here.
Where the waves are breaking is where the beach would normally start.
Now we'll have to see what the aftermath really looks like.
We are all over this country covering all these weather events.
Is this your plan to watch the game today?
I have to watch my neighbor's NFL Sunday ticket.
It's not your best plan, but you know what it is? My plan from Verizon.
For a limited time, get NFL Sunday ticket from YouTube TV on us, a $449 value. Plus, get a free Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 5, only on Verizon.
Repel every element. With Rain-X Pro Ceramics.
Fox Weather, your Hurricane HQ. Kiana Lewis, Stephen Morgan, and Amy Freeze here along for Weather Command. We've got back-to-back trouble in the tropics. Now, so far this week, we have had 2 storms make landfall. It's only Wednesday. A storm now from the Pacific Basin we know has made such an impact in Southern California. It was once a Category 4. Hilary eventually came ashore as a tropical storm, first time in 30 years to impact Southern California with a storm like this. The center went over San Diego, the Coachella Valley, and it was just east of L.A. Very quick developing storm came out of the Gulf this week. Tropical Storm Harold set its sights on the east coast of Lone Star State, and South Texas got soaked with heavy rain, thunderstorms. Fox Weather's Jason Frazier was on Padre Island at landfall of that storm.
About 4 a.m. this morning, it was hot, it was humid, and then as those outer rain bands for Harold moved in, that is when we saw the air temperature decline here. The winds are continuing to pummel the area, and city officials encouraging people to stay inside.
Both of the storms this week moved moisture into the southwest. Harold had the leftovers of that storm roll into the desert southwest. Parts of New Mexico, Arizona, Utah are going to be at risk in the coming days for isolated flash flooding from the leftovers of that storm. It comes real close to what Hilary left behind as well. Don't want to discount what went down with the beneficial rain, though. I mean, tropical moisture coming from both directions does result in some headlines. Corpus Christi reported 14% of their annual rainfall in just one day. Hilary also gave Palm Springs 70% of their rain in 24 hours. So both of those flows of moisture going into regions that need rain. There are the numbers. 3.25 for Palm Springs went down in the books, and Corpus Christi 4.34 is 14% of their yearly rain. Texas, in a place where the governor has said we are in a disaster declaration because it's been so hot and dry, so any rain they could get in was really important. But Hilary did overwhelm communities in California. There was mud and debris, and it was a scary situation. Kiana, we watched as Nicole Valdez covered this story, but what scary results they had in the Palm Desert.
That's right. A lot of it came from that mud. The conditions there in areas like Cathedral City had been so extreme that earlier in the week, firefighter crews had to use front-end loaders to rescue some of the residents from a senior care facility. And the Cathedral City fire chief leading this operation, he did join Fox Weather last night to discuss how that situation unfolded. Take a listen.
We were running out of options just due to the dynamic of the elderly patients and the multiple threats of still moving mud. We had gas leaks in the area. We just talked it through of how can we make it as safe as possible for us and probably more importantly for the residents. And you see some of them covered in sheets. We got them put on the protective devices. So we made it as safe as we could. And it was a team effort.
And in the Coachella Valley, several cities also reported that the 911 services were down for nearly 24 hours through Monday. That did include Palm Springs as well. So overall, a scary situation, Amy, from, flooding through mudslides and even not even be able to call, services for help.
Yeah, they could not have gotten ambulances in. They had to use the front loaders because the ambulances couldn't have got in through the mud. And they both had first responders in those front loaders to get them in. And then they put the people in them to get them out. Mm-hmm. The rescue is a front loader.
Yeah, and it was a completely different set of circumstances. But Hurricane Harvey, those tractors, the front loaders had to be used where buckets were quite literally carrying people to safety, to some higher ground, some drier ground. Had flights, too.
Yeah, property was a problem, but also we had 200 flights canceled in San Diego the day that Hilary made landfall. So we had a lot of travel disruptions that came from the storm as well.
And if you're on that one flight where it's especially tough, it's one that you won't forget. And there was another incident where Hilary made things rough. It was an Alaska Airlines flight leaving San Diego, made an emergency hard landing during the storms. It happened in Orange County in the city of Santa Ana at John Wayne Airport. Ooh. But it wasn't just Hilary. Hilary didn't cause this. The landing gear malfunctioned, and as a result, they had to make this emergency landing. But can you think about this? We've had winds weren't a huge issue, but the clouds were so low. We had cloud bases at about 900 feet, so the pilot has 900 feet to make that landing. But the reason why this was so complicated, and you saw those sparks fly too, the runway is about 5,700 feet long. It's barely over a mile. That might sound like a lot, but it's one of the shortest in the country. So for this to occur because of some malfunctioning landing gear, and you do it in the midst of a storm, those passengers, I bet, counting their blessings. There's like 105 on board.
Santa Ana Airport?
Santa Ana, yeah.
One of the shortest airports, and I'm just making a note to myself because I want to remember that. I want to remember this.
Yes.
Yeah, that is a terrifying situation.
It
is.
Very
scary.
I mean, and we should note, all passengers, crew on board, they were fine, no injuries with them, but now a story to share.
All right, we'll watch the flow of moisture that's come from the tropics. It extends from Mexico to Montana. It falls just shy of the Canadian border where fires have been burning. And that massive ridge that's creating all the heat is where this weather is basically running north. So the showers coming out of the southwest will keep moving. Could they help with some of the wildfires? This season, we have had smoke in the northwest. We've had blazes smoldering there. So a little bit of moisture training up in that direction could be good news. And then the fires have been out of control in Canada. We know that. So we hope the moisture could reach there. Might just fall short of it. We've had 30 million acres burn in Canada so far, well ahead of the seasonal average. It's not just the expanse of the fires, though. Some of them have been very, very intense. We've seen incredible satellite imagery, pyrocumulus being exploded out of these fires, basically weather being created by the fire itself. So these blazes can generate clouds of their own. And this happened this week in Dalton Lake wildfire. This is in British Columbia, about 120 miles north of Vancouver. What do you see? Fire whirl, a water spout, a tornado? It looks like Hollywood special effects, but this is real time. Looking at this in the Fox Forecast Center, everybody had their own twist on what they thought might be coming out of a very active Canadian wildfire. I mean, you see how much is burning there, but the visuals on what these fires can create are extraordinary. Is it a fire whirl?
You know, and the reason why it kind of sparks debate, it was the British Columbia wildfire service. I want to read what they had said, and resulting in, with the complex terrain that we have, downsloping winds, there was a cold front that moved through back on the 17th of August. That provided, as they had said, the necessary conditions for the formation of a fire whirl. But what we have seen with fire whirls, they normally involve flames. And I know it's hard to, I think that some smoke was getting ingested in this, but it's also over water. So the discussion was, is it a water spout? I think it's more so of a water spout. Yeah. It's hard to ignore what's going on behind the scenes. I mean, in the background, because those are true flames. But despite it, I've never seen anything like this. That's not saying much, but
I haven't either. But I would vote with you, a water spout for sure.
More so, yeah.
And it's really because of the base that convinces me that this could be a water spout as opposed to maybe a fire whirl. As you mentioned, we don't really see any flames. We don't see anything sparking from, the vortex. So I would say it's a water spout as well.
Yeah, real life, better than the Hollywood special effects with the season coming out of Canadian wildfires to the north. Yeah. Well, on this day, August 23rd, we go back to 1933 with a peak of history. Chesapeake Potomac hurricane made landfall in northeastern North Carolina. This storm wreaked havoc across the Delmarva. It destroyed Ocean City, Maryland's boardwalk, and actually that led to the creation of the inland, which shaped that city. If you vacation there, this hurricane is the reason why it became what it is today.
And a lot of people think back to this hurricane. It was
tourists that turn into scientists, tourists taking photos that are analyzed by AI, so researchers can help life underwater flourish.
On the eastern seaboard, it's all systems go.
I would agree with you. I think it really looks good for late August. In terms of temperatures, we're even seeing some very comfortable temperatures across the Northeast. Look at how we are going to pan out today. You mentioned some of the activity across the Great Lakes region. That will start to impact, say, western portions of Pennsylvania as well as upstate New York later tonight. But for the most part, today is really going to be a nice day along that I-95 corridor from Bangor down towards D.C. We have plenty of sunshine in place. Bangor tops out at around 76 today, Boston 73, 79 out towards New York, and then eventually down into the 80s for Washington, D.C. It's back towards, say, Pittsburgh, Detroit, that we have to watch for those showers and storms that could be severe into later tonight. Across the southeast, that's where it gets hot. Once again, we're talking triple digits due to that high pressure system in areas like New Orleans. 101 for you, 93 over towards Atlanta, 93 into Jacksonville. A bit cooler with a few showers, some moisture over, say, areas like Miami, 80s as your top number. In the central portions of the country, we're talking that heat once again, and there's going to be a lot of it expanding as far north as the upper Midwest and as far south as Texas. Dallas, 104 is your hot number for today. Kansas, 100 degrees, 97 up into Chicago. Add in that humidity, it actually feels a lot hotter than those air temperatures through the latter half of the day. Across the West Coast, we're still talking about the remnants of Harold that's going to be pushing into the desert Southwest. It's offering up showers and storms that could lead to some flooding. So, you know, an area that's prone to flooding, you want to stay away from it for today and into the next couple of days. This moisture continues to feed up as far north as, say, Utah as well as Colorado. We do have a few chances for thunderstorms in Salt Lake City, but across, say, the West Coast from Seattle through San Francisco and into LA, we have balmy conditions and dry conditions as well. You can stay on top of the latest alerts, and you can also download the Fox Weather app or stream Fox Weather on your favorite connected TV device. We'll be right back after.
And hello, everyone. The top story right now on America's Weather Center. Tropical storm Franklin slamming the Caribbean, dumping heavy rain and flood fears on the Dominican Republic. The tropical system making its way up the Atlantic. Yeah, another island still in its sights. We'll track it all right now, right here. And hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us on America's Weather Center. I'm Craig Herrera. Now, as we head into the afternoon, here's a look at the weather you can expect today across America. We began first with Franklin. The next tropical system we've been watching moving over the Dominican Republic, and this is producing a whole lot of rain over the area. Also watching this closely. As we go into the afternoon, we'll watch how much rain is coming through, and you think about the mountain ranges here ranging from 5,000 feet to 10,000 feet. That's going to be a major concern as well. Next tropical systems we've been watching, and we're also talking about some of the heat out there. The heat is going to be a major concern as we go into the afternoon for a good chunk of the middle part of the lower 48. Here's a look at some of the other disturbances we're watching. Remnants of Emily just will not let go, and look at that, a 70% chance of development going into the next couple of days. Invest 92L, another area to watch with a 30% chance of development. And here is a look at the heat with the excessive heat warnings, extending clear all the way up into Minneapolis. And we're talking about several locations, talking about potentially setting some record highs or tying those record highs as well. Take a look at the flood from Tropical Storm Franklin in Colombia. So much water coming down, flooding streets out there. The system is hitting the Dominican Republic right now with some heavy, heavy rain. We talk about the mountain range out there. Some of those peaks anywhere from 5,000 feet all the way up to 10,000 feet. A lot of moisture to be wrung out over the area, and it's moving rather slowly. It's right over the Dominican Republic. Some of those rain bands and making it all the way to Puerto Rico as well. Here's what we have with Franklin right now. Taking a look at this as the direction starts to move to the north at about 13 miles per hour. We watch this closely, still with 40-mile-per-hour winds, but look at those outer bands moving all the way into Puerto Rico there, creating some rain for us here. Meantime, here's what it looks like as we take a look at the tropical storm warnings. In fact, the entire coastline of the Dominican Republic expecting those winds. You're going to see those over the Turks and Caicos as well, and then the southern side of Haiti when we're looking at the island of Hispaniola. Here's what it looks like on the satellite imagery, and you can see some of those outer rain bands. You can see some of those storm tops pretty high, but right near the center and to the south of there, you got some pretty impressive storm tops producing a whole lot of rain. Doesn't look real organized. It's even tough to make out the center of where the storm is specifically, but here's where we got all of the rain ringing out over the higher elevations, leading to the chance for more in the way of flooding. Now, this storm, while a good chunk of it is over the land, it has a lot of moisture to work with, and it has a whole lot in the way of heat from the waters. Look at the water temperatures, all in the 85, 86 degree range. And you think of that as the octane for these storms to really develop. So yes, it's moving over the higher mountains right now, but as it comes off of the Hispaniola Island, look what it does. It has a whole lot to work with, and you look what it does behind it. Some of those rainfall totals easily 3 to 5 inches of rain. You're talking up to 8 to 12 inches of rain in some of the higher elevations, especially as we go into the days ahead. When you took a look at the terrain of the Dominican Republic, all of these ranges, again, up to 10,000 feet. And when you think about just how lush this area is, plenty of trees, plenty of moisture, and in fact, a lot of people refer to this as the Alps, if you will, the Dominican Alps. So Pico Duarte, by the way, 10,174 feet above sea level. Here's what Tropical Storm Franklin looks like. It's interesting with the track. Take a look at how it's starting to go off just to the west-northwest. Then it makes a quick turn and heads to the north. Got an area of high pressure that's going to build right over here and right about here. It's going to help to steer a lot of this into the north. So that's why it's taking this funky little turn. Where it goes is still a question. You're taking a look at this big trough to the north there. The position of where it goes once it makes that little turn is still a bit of a question. But when you take a look at what's going on with all of the models, you talk about here's talking about the spaghetti models. Every color there is one of the models, and pretty good consensus that it goes up into the north there. There's the consensus model when you put them all together, and it's pretty compact once you get to the north. But here's what's interesting. When you take a look at all of the other models and it goes up to the north, watch what happens here. All of these little L's are where it could be. It almost looks like a light bulb, right? Because once it gets just to the north of Bermuda's got to be on high alert. Any of these little L's you see out here for this